Hello and welcome to a new episode of Product and Cake. Here with me in the virtual recording studio is my co-host and very seasoned expert product lead, Ghonche. How are you today?
I'm great, Paul. How are you doing?
I'm also great. I'm very happy that we record again with a super thrilling topic because we will talk today about data analysis for product managers, it is called. And that is one of the key things, I would say, to recognize what you are doing and to justify. But before that, we have two more agenda points. First one is our usual check-in question. And the second one is an announcement I want to make. But let us start with the check-in.
That is also a surprise for me, so I cannot wait.
Yeah, I have two surprising points. One is the surprising check-in question for you, and that is, what is a future hobby you would like to start? A future hobby you would like to start?
So first question is, what do we consider hobby? Like things that you actively do, or also learning something can be a hobby?
That is also a hobby, I would say. Something you dedicate time for where your company is not paying you, I would say. But I would also consider all of our side projects as hobbies.
Yeah.
Right? We have one or the other episode about them.
Yeah, that's true. I would like to dedicate more time in learning about art history and art heritage management. So, yeah, but it's not an active hobby. So I want to learn, maybe take a couple of courses on Coursera or something. How about you, Paul?
Yeah, that is already a hobby. And then you will visit some places and you find some locations to go, right? And to deepen your knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say that's a very good hobby.
Nice.
My future hobby I would like to start is definitely gardening.
Ooh.
I have my favorite flower that is called black-eyed Susan, and that is really beautiful. And I would like to go into this to professionally grow them, right?
Nice.
With having this small growing house and a super dedicated plan, and then make them look really, really beautiful and really healthy. That would be something I definitely would like to do.
Nice. That sounds good. Now I know what to give you as a gift for Christmas. That makes my life easier.
That is also the secret meaning behind that question. And you should definitely steal that for your team, because one is you get perfect present ideas. The other thing is because I had that recently in my team, this question, and it was such a nice discussion that starts to spin, because when someone is telling you, hey, I would like to do this or that, then someone else is jumping on it and say, hey, I have a friend who's doing it, or I did it on my own. Here are some good links and tips. I think that is something that can really drive your team belonging.
That's true. Yeah. You can also help each other to get that started.
Yeah, right. And if you have a fulfilling hobby and you feel good and ideally have maybe some work friends you can talk about, then you will also do a better job in the end, right? Because we're humans and we want to bring our full self to work. But before we go now too deep into this all new work methodology and stuff, there are also a lot of good podcasts about that one. I want to make an announcement, because one hobby I started already a few years ago, basically when we worked together, and that is also fulfilling a life dream of mine, because when I was a child, I also wanted to become an author, a writer. And in January 2025, my debut novel will be released. My very, very first book. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Oh,
that is so exciting.
Wow.
Yeah. That will be released. Thank you very much. So, my first question to you, Ghonche, how's your German? Are you already able to read German novels?
Of course, I will start. That's how I improve my German. I mean, I got my
Awesome.
B1 certificate, so I think I can read it, and it's good that I have someone at home that can help me with the big words. So, yeah. Oh my God, that's really cool, Paul.
Thank you. Yeah, you will definitely get one book for sure.
I want it
And
signed, please.
yeah, of course. You will get yours, definitely. I'm super curious to hear what you think about it. And because basically when we both worked at mobile.de, I started to write it every day, very
Oh,
early in the morning, every day a small part. So maybe you can find the one or other
that's
common. I mean, it is
amazing.
not about mobility, obviously, and it is completely from my imaginary. But you know, your daily work life is always part
That's
of it.
really cool. What's the genre, if it's okay to share?
Yeah, of course. If you go to www.paul-luno.de, you can even see the cover and read a little bit about it. And the publishing house called it a cyber novel. So it plays in the close future, I would say. And it is about an engineer. She is dreaming to work in the most modern company of the world. And then that becomes true suddenly. But when she starts her new work, she's waking up and see the truth behind the facade.
That's really cool. So we can also, when we go to the website, because I just did it, we can also do a pre-order.
Yes, you can go already to your local bookstore and order it, or use any other big shopping platform in the internet.
Nice. That's amazing. That's really cool. Also, maybe
Definitely.
it's good to spell your first and last name for listeners to find the website easier.
Yes, I can do that.
Okay.
PAUL-LUNOW.de.
Yes. I'm looking at the cover. It's really cool, and it says it's a cyber roman. Oh my God, that's really cool. I cannot wait to get my hands on it.
Yeah, and in a few months, I also can finally share my knowledge about book selling on Amazon, because that
Yeah,
is, or in general, I have absolutely no clue how data driven this business is. Most
yeah.
likely it is, right? But I don't know how to track the data and if it counts the pre-orders and the sellings and so on and so forth. But I will report as soon as I know.
Nice, nice. That's really cool. And also a great transition to our topic today, which is data for product management and data analytics for product managers.
Right. And in our digital products, it's obviously more or less most of the time super easy to track everything and to raise qualitative data. That means a lot of data. Every interaction with the product can be tracked, is stored, sometimes in a database. Some cool people call it data lake or data storage or data warehouse. There you have a lot of nice names for it. But in the end, you always need to answer the question, why, right? And Ghonche,
Yeah.
why should we track something at all and record all that data?
Um, that's a great question. It's to be honest, I also recently watched a Netflix documentary that changed my mind slightly about how we do product improvements and how we do all of this conversion rate optimizations. But it's the documentary is called Buy Now. It's a little bit of a it takes you as a product manager and shakes you a little bit, or someone in business. So with that, a little bit, I'm pushing it on the side, that information. So I will talk more from a business standpoint. We cannot improve if we cannot measure something. So we cannot get better at addressing our customers' needs if we don't know what they are, if we don't know how currently they interact with our product. And for being able to track all of those, we need to have certain triggers, certain events in the product that gives us a collective data how the users behaved. So as an example, if a user adds your book to their cart on Amazon, that action needs to be tracked. So you as an author know how many books people have ordered or pre-ordered so far. So the publishing house knows how many they need to print out, because each time that they do a printout, it's going to be a massive cost. So it makes sense to combine it all together, to do one time a printout of 3,000 instead of doing 3 times a 1,000. So that's why these data, the pre-order data, and also how many books of this genre these people have bought in the past year can influence the information for the publishing house, how many books to publish.
Yeah, with selling the book, I would say the example is quite easy, right? Because in the end, we want to foresee the number of books. But when let's imagine we are in a smaller team, right? And we had this fantastic problem we fall in love with. We have some good ideas on how to solve it. We built our first MVP. We threw in Google Analytics or another tool I will recommend in the end. I love much, much more. And then we are in front of this dashboard, right? And most of the time we don't have a BI department, business intelligence, or dedicated data analysts. Is especially in the beginning or in smaller teams, it is on us as the product tech responsible people to understand the data and to do something with it. So if you are looking in this first MVP, do you have, compared to this putting the book into the shell, into the basket, do you have anything similar on mind on what to look first, or on how to identify what I should look at? I think that is the question, because if I open any given dashboard, it overfloods me with so many things. I don't know what to look at first.
Yeah, that's true. So my suggestion would be to create a KPI tree. For creating a KPI tree, usually you would start with your North Star metric. How you get to the North Star metric is that you look at the core of your product and see what need it is solving. So if the need is, let's take an example of a taxi app. So similar to the taxi apps that are currently out there, that you open the app, you say, where are you right now, where you're going, and then you send a request, a taxi comes and picks you up and takes you where you need to go. So in that case, the main goal of this app to exist is finished rides. So it's not started rides. It is not the people who have opened the app. It is finished rides. That's when the need is fulfilled. That's the whole existence of the app, that you have been successfully taken from point A to point B. And that becomes the North Star metric. So the number of successful rides, for example. And then from that, you need to see what impacts that. So if you think about a formula in your mind, it doesn't need to be an actual formula. It doesn't need to be scientific in a way that, number of people times 2.8 times da. That we will get to later, at the later point, when we have collected data for all of these steps. So from there, you need to check that what impacts this metric, what impacts the number of successful rides. For sure, the number of started rides. For sure, the number of users who have started the ride. So that is one thing that impacts it. Before that, what impacts the number of started rides is the number of requests. And before the number of requests is the number of users who have this app. So you need to connect this like a tree together that starts from this North Star metric, and then you need to draw all of these branches that, what impacted this? And then again, next layer, ask the question for each one, what impacted this? And then you will have this shape that helps you understand how how metrics on your product are working together. So then you can understand, if we increase this metric of people have downloaded the app, then probably we will also be able to impact the metric of people who have had a successful ride. It's going to be 3, 4, 5 steps between that, but that's going to be how it's working. If you reduce the amount of time that the user is waiting for getting a taxi, because that also can impact it. If the users are sending a lot of requests, but each request that they send, they need to wait 15 minutes for a taxi to accept their request, then that ride is not going to be happening. That's not going to be a started ride. That's not going to become a successful ride. So it breaks at that point. So if you reduce the time that people are waiting to get their car or get their request accepted, then the chances are higher that you will have successful rides at the end.
Yeah, I really like that picture of this KPI tree because it also allows you to have KPIs in parallel, right? And funnel, if you create a funnel from A to B, you always have a straight line and you have no things to escape. But in a tree, you have maybe KPIs that are on the same level, but on different funnels, right? Because you, in a marketplace, like in the taxi ride-hailing app, you have the supply and the demand, and that needs to match, but they are also influencing each other. They are connected, but they could also be analyzed in parallel or from different teams or with different perspectives and so on. That's why I would always recommend to make that tree in the first version as easy as possible and easy to understand. Give good examples, also examples that are understandable by people who are not deep into the product tech world, and share that with the rest of the company, right? Because especially this North Star metric, you should not be the only one team who is having it and understanding it, because the company will become much more successful if everyone knows about it and everyone understands it, sees the value, and is working together to fulfill that, because everything is connected, right? The sales and marketing team are important as the product tech team, and both needs to work in the same direction.
Yeah, exactly. And also, if you're in a bigger company, the North Star metric is for the whole product. It's not only for your team or area of product. It's for the whole product. You cannot have a North Star metric only for your team, because then your personal team's North Star metric might not align with the actual company's goal. So you might run in a complete different direction. In this scenario, if you are in part of a bigger company, it makes sense to have the North Star metric of the company and then create the KPI tree, and then and take from the bigger picture of the KPI tree the area of your impact of your team. Say, okay, these are the metrics that we are owning and influencing, instead of saying that, this is our North Star metric. So you also see the connection with the rest of the company.
Yeah, I really like that. Impact and influence. I did that mistake just recently because we worked on the KPIs. We did super nice pictures. We tracked everything. We implemented the stuff. And then we figured out, wait a second, the main metric we gave our team to be successful was just not in our influence. Right? It was a complete different team who was, or still is, responsible for that number. And we can just help them to get to their numbers, but we were not directly able to change any way how this number is developing. So it is super important to step back a little and ask yourself, okay, is that a number I and my team can really change something, or do we need to go to the drawing table again and identify the things that helps the other team to be more successful? But then it's different numbers, because nothing is more frustrating if you try to push your team into improving a number where you just have implicit an implicit way to do something about it.
Yeah, exactly. So I here also would recommend that you take a look at the circles of influence framework. It's very simple. It's 3 circles within each other. That the innermost part is the circle of impact. That the things that you can directly impact, the things that are part of your decisions that you can change. A little bit bigger than that is the circle of influence, what you can nudge, what you can maybe support, or if we are talking about the metrics, is that you and another team together need to own that metric. It's not your direct impact, it's more your influence. And then the circle of concern is bigger one. So things that you're concerned about, things that will, like in one way or another, they might have an impact on you, but you cannot impact it. So as an example, the weather is my circle of concern. I am concerned because it's going to impact me. It's going to impact what am I going to wear? Am I going to take an umbrella with me or not? But it's not something that I can impact or influence.
Yeah. Yeah. If it is raining, most likely more people will call a taxi.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly.
And today we live in the AI world, right? And you can't go as a product manager to ChatGPT or any other given LLM and say, hey, give me a KPI tree. This is not working. You will get super, super high level, well-sounding bullshit.
Generic.
That was the word. Thank you. Very, very generic answers. But what you can do is sitting down with your team, with your coworkers, and work out that tree. Then take all the keywords you were just hearing in our conversation here, throw them in and say, hey, look, this is what I did. This is our product we are doing. This is the important stuff I'm caring about, like circles of influence, like KPI tree, North Star metrics. And then ask the AI to give you feedback on your work. And then you will get a lot of good things you can incorporate into your actual document on how to track your product.
Yes, exactly. That's a great hint. Just a side note about using GPT models. Have in mind the copyright laws. So when you also share something, make sure that if it's not a private one, you're not sharing company secrets.
Yeah, thank you. Important. I hope you got from your employee an access to one or the other model.
Yeah.
And then I would like to add one more important point from the tech perspective, because there are basically 2 different ways on how to track things on your product, on your tech product. One is auto capture. That means you just throw in the tracking code and it brings mechanisms to track more or less every behavior. And you as a product manager, you can go into and structure your own events and actions and so on. That is pretty cool. But as an engineer, you can always build stuff that is slightly around the standard, let's say, and is not tracked by auto capture or is changing with the next release or even with the next build. So this is very, very good for the very first step, but you should be in close contact with your engineers to validate that this will not change tomorrow. And you need to know, okay, with one major product release, maybe my data is not reliable anymore. This is the auto capture thing. The other thing is you give your engineering team a long table and say, okay, if user is going to that web page, clicks that button, then this event should be tracked with these and that properties. And this is good because it is more reliable, but it requires a lot of quality assurance. Well, maybe not a lot, but you need to check regularly, especially after major releases, if the events are still fired as expected. And that is something where you need to develop a habit, ideally together with checking the numbers, if all of that is still working as expected. Talk with your engineers. There are very great mechanisms to really see what is going on behind the beautiful interface. But create that habit to check the data. I worked with a lot of teams who track a lot of numbers, and we had super awesome workshops on what to track. But after 6 months, I went back to the team and I'm asking, hey, how's the numbers evolving? And they are directly into creation mode and are saying, hey, we have a new idea. We will track this. We added a new branch to our KPI tree that is super cool. And I'm always saying, yeah, but what is with the existing one, right? How often do you check the data? How fast do you recognize that something in the data is changing? And I think there are a lot of people outside, and I would also count me into that group that really loves to work on new stuff instead of regularly checking the existing dashboards.
Yeah, for checking the existing dashboards, I 100% do recommend that you have your North Star metric in there. If you're a smaller team, the main metrics that you can impact needs to be part of your dashboard. Also, you need to have in mind for each data how it makes sense to visualize that. So some data does not make sense to visualize in a bar chart, for example, and some data you need to visualize in a bar chart or a pie chart. So take a look at that list, that which data categorizes in which visualization. And you can use tools such as the Google Analytics, Looker dashboard, and Paul, you mentioned one other.
Yeah. I want to recommend you to take a look into Post Hoc. Post Hoc is, they call themselves a product analytics for engineers, and I love it. It is so fantastic. They have a lot of good material. They offer a super large free tier to throw that into your product and start tracking. They have this auto capture, but also a very nice API to really put the events into your code. And I am a big fan already. Post Hoc, you will find it, and very funny landing page. And last but not least, find a cadence with your team to look at the dashboards. There's nothing more frustrating and boring to look in a dashboard every week or even every day that is not changing, right? You need to find out, okay, what is the interval you want to look at, and you can validate, okay, we did this and this influences our numbers by this and that, and not look at that every day. We have the same thing and the changes are really only visible on the long term, right? Or the other way around.
Exactly. And also when you're defining that, it is important to differentiate between the metrics that you need to monitor and metrics that you are adding as for an exploration. So the ones that you need to monitor, you can handle it two ways. Either create dashboard, check it regularly, or also set alerts that if this metric went below this threshold or above this threshold, send us an email or reminder so we know something's either going really well or wrong. And for the ones that are for exploration, it allows you to understand the user's behavior better. But a very important note here about collecting personal data of your users. In general, you need to treat personal data with a less is more lens. And the personal data that the user shares with you is like opening up parts of their heart, parts of their personal life to you, and you need to honor that and respect that in a way that just take what is utmost needed and nothing more than that. I know we talk a lot about personalization and oh my God, how good it would be if you also collect more personal data to personalize it even more, but we can do personalization without collecting personal data.
Ghonche, it sounds very much that you had recently a data privacy training or something.
Actually, no, but I had a talk about product and inclusivity.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's
also
where I took it from.
I see. Yeah, thank you for reminding us. It is so easy to forget, right? Because we are obsessed with data, as you can hear already. And there are so many things to look at and so many possibilities. but also the topic is huge, right? So don't stress out yourself. Take care that you are not recording personal data without any clue. Secure the data. Make sure not everyone gets admin access by default. This kind of stuff is super important. And then do it like we do our everyday work. Be agile. Do it step by step. Make an experiment. Maybe start with 1 or 2 KPIs and see if they are helping you in making a decision, and then move forward. Talk about your process.
Exactly.
Ghonche, I have the impression we need to do a second episode about that topic.
I think so too.
So
there's so many more to talk about.
Yeah, that was the qualitative aspect. No, sorry, that was the quantitative aspect, right? You track basically more or less everything, so you get a lot of data. But also there's this huge topic of qualitative data, where you have one-on-one conversations, or where you are talking with your mom or similar things. So I would suggest the voice of the customer is our next topic. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. Maybe there will also come one or the other chance to win a signed book.
Ooh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so stay tuned, and thank you for listening and for your questions and suggestions on how to move forward. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.